Okay, in this video we're going to talk about creating fancy borders using Photoshop. And I'm talking about borders kind of like the ones we see in this screenshot of a website, where we have this sawtooth effect between the top navigation area and then the area below. This is a design technique we're seeing more and more often. It's become a pretty popular trend. And the great thing about it is it's really easy to create in Photoshop, and it's really easy to create variations on this effect. So we don't end up with something cookie cutter, but rather customized to our particular design. So let's take a look in Photoshop at how we would set this up. And it all begins by using that basic rectangle tool that we've come to know. So we're going to click the rectangle tool icon in the toolbar, or we can tap the U key on our keyboards to select the rectangle tool. Remember, if you've used a different shape recently, that shape is going to be active in the tool set. For example, I can come over to the polygon tool. And if I'm on something else and I tap U, it's going to select the polygon tool, but not the rectangle tool. So I need to click, hold down the mouse or trackpad, and then go over to rectangle tool to get that selected. Okay, with that set up, I'm going to draw a rectangle on the page here, and I'm going to make it a perfect square, same width and height. To do that, I can hold down the Shift key as I click and drag across the page here, and that's going to lock the proportions between width and height. So I end up with a perfect square. And we don't need this to be terribly big. In fact, I'm zoomed out here, so we're going to make this fairly small. We'll go down to 40 pixels if we can get to that. Okay, there's 40 pixels. One other trick here, actually, in newer versions of Photoshop, once I've selected my rectangle tool, I can click anywhere, and I'm going to end up with a dialog box which allows me to set the width and height values. So here I can set 40, 40. And there's my rectangle. Okay, let's zoom in so we can see a better view of what's going on here. Okay, so with this rectangle created, this square in fact created, we're going to go into the free transform mode. And what we want to do first and foremost is make sure that the coordinates, the X and Y coordinates of this shape, are resting on full pixel values. In other words, up here in the X value and Y value, we want to make sure that we don't have anything after the decimal other than 0. If we do have something there, that's going to mess things up a little bit later when we begin replicating this one shape. So with that confirmed, the next thing we want to do is rotate this shape by 45 degrees. We could do that by clicking and dragging, but as usual, we have more control, more precision if we simply type in values. So we're going to come up here toward the top. We're still in free transform mode. We have our rotation option here, and we can set the rotation by typing in a new value. So I'll simply type 45 and hit return twice or enter twice to confirm that, and my square is now a diamond. Okay, with this setup we can go back into free transform mode and we can make all kinds of customizations or modifications to the shape depending on what we want to do. And we don't have to use a rectangle, in fact. We could start with a rounded rectangle, which is going to give us more of a rounded, wavy kind of border when we're done. We'll stick with this, though, and I'm just going to make this a little bit less wide and confirm that. Okay. With that in place, we're ready to start replicating or duplicating what we've made. And we want to do that, again, using the free transform tool. But before we use free transform, and remember on the Mac the key combination for that is Command T and it's Control T on a PC. We're going to press an additional key, and on a Mac that's going to be Option. On a PC it's going to be Alt. By pressing that additional key first, when we go into free transform mode, not only are we transforming our shape, but first we're copying it, and then we're transforming the copy. So let's take a look at how that happens. I'm going to hold down the Option key, hit the Command key, and then tap T. I'm back in free transform mode, and so far everything seems just the same. But actually, if I transform this, and this time the transformation is going to be to move it to the right. I'm going to do that by holding down the Shift key, which moves by a larger margin, and then I'm going to tap my right key to move over. I'll do this a couple more times so you can see. I have actually two shapes now. So I've copied the first shape and now I'm moving it over. I'm going to move this just a tiny bit to the right, and I'm going to hit the enter or return key to save that or confirm it. And now you can see we have two of our diamonds side by side, and we're beginning to see the makings of this sawtooth effect. Well, now that we've done it one time, it turns out that we want to do the same thing a bunch of additional times. We just want to repeat that transformation. This could be tedious if we had to do it one by one. Fortunately, Photoshop provides a really easy way to repeat the last transformation that we made, even if that transformation involved copying something first. And to do that, we're going to introduce an additional key into our keyboard shortcut, and that's the Shift key. So what we want to do here on a Mac is hold down Shift and then hit the Option key, the Command key, and the T key all together. And what that's going to do is repeat the last copy transformation. On a PC, that's going to be Shift, Alt, Control T. So let's try it on the Mac here. We'll hold down Shift, Option, Command, and we'll hit the T key. Actually, to make this work, we need to make sure we're on the active layer here. So let me come back to our rectangle layer that we were just on. We'll try that one more time. Okay, there we go. Now we have a third copy of our diamond in play. And I'm going to just keep tapping the T key here to build a bunch of these. It doesn't really matter how many we make. In CSS, we're going to end up repeating this pattern, so we don't have to get too crazy, but we'll do it enough times that we can clearly see what the effect is that we're going for. Okay, if I click on my background layer here, we can see a little better what we're ending up with. And now that sawtooth effect is really becoming clear to us. Okay, with this set, we're ready to wrap things up here. What we want to do is crop down what we've made to trim it down a bit. So first of all, I'm going to take my rectangle layer and I'm going to rasterize it. So far we've been working purely in vector shapes. By rasterizing it, we're preparing it for export, and we're also making it easier to come in here and to make some final modifications. So I've rasterized it, and to do that I right-clicked or control-clicked on the rectangle layer, came in to rasterize and rasterize the layer, and now I'm going to zoom in far enough that I can see the individual pixels here. And now I'm going to hit the M key to change over to my selection tool. And what I want to do is click and drag to select everything on the end here except for the tallest point. So I'm going to come over to just here, select that, and then tap the delete key or the backspace key on a PC to just remove that content. And then I'm going to come over to the right side and I'm going to remove everything including the highest point. This is very important because we want to make sure when we repeat this element in CSS that we have a perfect transition from one repetition to the next. And the way we do that is by keeping the highest point on one end and removing it on the other. Okay, so we'll delete that and we can zoom back out here. Okay, getting a little bit closer. So the final thing we want to do in terms of modifying our shape is to remove the top part because we don't need a sawtooth on both sides. So we can come in and click and change that. Okay, let's come back to that example we looked at for a second. So you'll notice that in this example we have a background color above the sawtooth. Okay, so back in Photoshop, if I decided I wanted to use a different background color for the top portion of my effect, I can just select it from my swatches. Let's select this brown color. And then I can apply it to my shape. Now, because I've rasterized this shape, I need to first select just the shape, and I can do that by coming over to my layers palette here, and I'm going to hold down the command key, this would be control on a PC, and then click on the little thumbnail for this layer here. That's going to select the contents of that layer, and then I can apply my foreground color in the usual way. Option Delete or Control Backspace on the PC. And make sure we have this selected here. There we go. Always want to make sure you have your layer selected as the active layer there. And then we can click off of it to see the end results. Okay, so we're in pretty good shape here. The final thing we're going to want to do is crop this down because we don't need any of the other white space around this image. So to do that, we can come in and zoom in really close. And I'm going to go to my crop tool, which we can get to here in our tool palette. You can also tap the C key. We want to just do a freeform crop here, so I'm going to go to Unrestrained at the top of the crop menu. Starting in the upper left corner, I'm going to move over to the right and select this entire shape. Again, the particular width here doesn't matter so much because we're going to be using CSS to duplicate what we've created. And we'll click to confirm that crop. Now, if we zoom back out to 100%, we have our fully cropped and created sawtooth effect here in Photoshop, and we come back and see the preview. We've got something kind of like this. And then again, using some basic CSS, we can set this as a background image, and then we can repeat that background image, and we're going to end up with a very nice sawtooth effect in our design.